What's going on, guys? This is the Red Rogue, and today I'll be doing a bit of a Rogue's Tips and Tricks guide on Torghast, Tower of the Damned. Having cleared both wings on Layer 6 this week, I felt it might be a good idea to give some advice, tips, and tricks to remember to do when you're running Torghast as a sneaky boy. So let's get into that Tower of the Damned and earn some Soul Ash. So, some of you might have seen I did a general tips and tricks video for Torghast Tower of the Damned about a week ago. If not, then I do recommend checking it out as it covers information and pointers that will prove useful to basically any and all classes attempting their Torghast runs. However, I wanted something more rogue specific as I have noticed a pretty distinct disparity in the crazy strong powers that some classes have in comparison to ours, and while we do have some pretty cool things here and there, for the most part, we don't exactly have a one-shot boss killer build to receive from the Anima hordes and vendors throughout Torghast. That does not mean we can't clear Torghast solo, but it does require us to use a bit more strategy and knowledge of our rogues, whether they be assassination, subtlety, or outlaw. As a quick heads up, this video will be segmented out so you can hop around to each section at your leisure. So first and foremost, your talent choices can and most likely will change a bit in Torghast, especially if you're running solo. For instance, Cheat Death is generally not going to do you much good in Torghast, whereas talents like Leeching Poison, Iron Stomach, Soothing Darkness, Retractable Hook, and Elusiveness can become exceptionally potent. The general recommendation for each spec would be to go with things that improve your self-healing or provide self-healing, though I will give some examples where you might want to consider Elusiveness and Retractable Hook as well. This all brings me to my next point, Anima powers and how they interact with our talents and toolkit. Due to a majority of our rogue-specific Anima powers not being exceptionally high damage effects, other than a few rogue Covenant powers and some of the rogue epic powers, it is definitely smart to pick up defensive benefits as well as offensive ones. There are definitely some strong offensive combinations and options which I will be talking about a bit in this video, don't worry. There was a recent tuning pass on several of our defensive benefits in Torghast, and some of them proved to be quite exceptional when combined with our talents and other powers. A great example of one that happens to be super spicy for Outlaw in particular is Restless Onyx Geodes. This makes it so that anytime you use Grappling Hook, you'll gain 15 seconds of either Cloak of Shadows, Evasion, Feint, or Crimson Vial. For Assassination and Subtlety, this will work with Shadow Step instead. For Outlaw, this already has great synergy with the Retractable Hook talent, and Outlaw has passive cooldown reduction on Grappling Hook just by spending combo points. I've had several times where I can Grappling Hook so many times back to back that I can have several of these powerful defensive traits rolling at the same time, and when combined with either Iron Stomach for extra healing, or Elusiveness for a flat 30% damage reduction from all sources plus 40% base AoE reduction, you can become pretty unkillable. In comparison, there are other traits like Organized Vial Satchel, which reduce the cooldown of Crimson Vial by 10 seconds, and can be stacked up to 3 times, resulting in instant Crimson Vial casts, which is pretty insane. Don't forget, you can change talents on levels 3 and 6 if you're in that blue broker bubble thingy where the vendor is, so if you pick up some of these powers, you can swap talents around to suit them better. There are also a number of generic defensive bonuses that you really might want to consider grabbing, such as Obleron Endurance. These give you a huge increase to your maximum health percentage, and by increasing your maximum health, you effectively increase the power of your Crimson Vial healing since those are based on your maximum health percentage. The Secret Spices trait is also exceptional if you can find it early-ish in your Torghast run, as it makes every Maw Rat you kill give you a 2% maximum health increase, going all the way up to 100% if you can find 50 of them. There are plenty of other ways to massively buff your health pool too, and I generally recommend getting them if there isn't a huge damage booster as an option, as buffing max health and Crimson Vial cooldown reduction are two massive ways to ensure your survival. In general though, quite a lot of the generic Anima powers can be very potent, like the stat increases and health increases, but the ones that can really spice things up are the powers that come from rare enemies. These generally seem specific to the type of enemy you're fighting and the wing of Torghast that you're in, and can often be extraordinarily useful. Always make sure to clear every floor of Torghast to find rare enemies, treasure chests, those black smoky urn thingies, and in general just explore and kill anything and everything you can for extra Phantasma and possibly hidden Anima hordes. This is a bit of a more broad suggestion, but it definitely applies to us sneaky boys, especially since we have the ability to avoid a lot of enemies with stealth. It also allows us to pick off enemies or set up ambushes and whatnot for patrolling mobs, giving us a bit more freedom and control to use the areas to our advantage. Speaking of an advantage, let's talk about our utility and toolkit in general. Rogues are renowned for the CC and defensive options we have available to us, and it would behoove you not to use everything you've got to finish your Torghast runs. Blind, Cheap Shot, Kidney Shot, and Gouge can all be used to stop spellcast and moves that can't be kicked as well. And almost every frickin' thing in Torghast is gonna try to fear you, throw a spear at you, set you on fire, throw a fiery spear that fears you, and things like that. The less of that they can do, the better. You should also be very mindful of which non-lethal poison you should be using based on the enemies you're fighting. Numbing Poison is amazing for slowing down the casting and attack speed of melee attackers, but sometimes Crippling Poison can let you kite enemies while waiting for your defensives or burst cooldowns to come off cooldown. Shiv is also pretty useful, though you probably won't be seeing too many enrage effects with Numbing Poison, which would be removable, but a 70% slow from Crippling Poison can be quite effective if you need to get some extra distance away from your opponent. CC can sometimes also work out to be a DPS gain for you, and you shouldn't be afraid to think outside the box. There are several Anima powers that directly involve crowd-controlled enemies taking extra damage or dealing less damage to you, but other times you can find some interesting interactions. For example, on my latest Layer 6 Coldheart Interstitia run, I found 2 Anima powers from some rare enemies. One of them gave a 5% stacking haste buff as long as I remained in combat, going up to 50%. The other one gave me 5% damage taken reduced as long as I stayed in combat, and also stacked up to 50%. So due to this, our lowly little maw rats, which are usually exceptionally annoying, became the perfect target for me to get in combat with, and then immediately slap a blind on them, resulting in them staying very far away from me while I kept both of these 50% buffs active for literally entire floors of Torghast. While this is just one example, it shows you how you can use the Rogue toolkit in ways you might not have considered, as being a sneaky boy you would think you would want to drop combat and stealth and all that. There are powers that of course benefit our stealth usage, but with a bit of luck and correct usage, our moves can be used for surprising options. Regarding most boss fights, I definitely recommend prioritizing single target increasing Anima powers and staying away from AoE damage oriented ones whenever possible. The reason I suggest that is because most enemies can be pulled individually or in small groups, meaning you don't really need to cleave everything in the room down and have maw rats exploding on them and whatever other AoE stuff is out there. Also, most people seem to hit the brick wall that is the floor 6 boss, so killing this guy faster means less chance of their stacking damage buff overwhelming you. There are some AoE oriented bosses, and I'll be starting a mini quick guide series on individual Torghast bosses soon if you're interested. For damaging powers, First Steps is of course a very strong but hard to find epic Anima power, and when combined with common traits like the Last Blade and even your handy Master Assassin Legendary if you decided to craft one of those, this can result in some exceptionally hard-hitting eviscerates, dispatches, and yes, even envenoms. Oh, and for assassination in particular, red ink is really strong to pick up, just as an FYI. The highest I have currently done as assassination was only layer 5 so far this week, as I just haven't done that many layer 6s yet, but I guarantee it is possible, even without crazy good luck or amazing offensive anima powers that other classes might have. It might seem a bit weird, but rogues can end up being super tanky in Torghast, which is how I've managed to clear basically all of mine so far was just by doing the mechanics of each fight and using defensives very regularly. I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say that Torghast is always going to be an easy time every time you do it. If you get bad luck on powers or one or more annoying end bosses, it can become a bit frustrating. However, just remember to take advantage of anything and everything we have in our toolkit and that's available to you in your Torghast run, and you should come out on top. We might not be able to two-shot an end boss, but we do have a lot of perks that other classes don't. Anyways, I hope that some of this information will prove useful to your future Torghast endeavors as a fellow sneaky boy. And if so, then maybe consider leaving a comment or a like. And if you haven't become one yet, maybe even a subscriber to the channel. I do new uploads every weekday on a variety of content, ranging from tips and tricks kind of information stuff like this, to add-on videos, week or videos, tutorials, guides, and naturally, rogue-specific things as well. I'd also like to take this time to thank all of my regular viewers, commenters, subscribers, and especially my patrons, who all help make these Shiba Shenanigans possible. Thank you all so much for watching. This is the Red Rogue, and I'll see you guys around.